After our bizarre encounter with the Melonheads, I was definitely ready to return to a more normal investigation. Well, I guess normal isn't exactly accurate in this line of work, but I think you know what I mean. Something more in our wheelhouse. So you can imagine my excitement when I found out that there had been a rash of cryptid sightings. Well, possible cryptid sightings. Even better, though, I had a feeling I knew exactly what we'd be dealing with.
Monkey on loose in Kentucky town. You know monkeys have already been discovered, right?
It's not a monkey. It's a cryptid.
I don't know. The headline says monkey. Not very convincing yet. What else have you got?
Well, no one can say for sure what kind of monkey it is. No one's given a good description of it. Could be the fog.
Could just be no one's gotten a good look at it.
All right. Then how about this? What if I told you that these sightings were in the same town as one of the most well-known cryptid cases?
Which would be?
The Hopkinsville Goblins.
Hopkinsville Goblins. Hopkinsville Goblins. Why does that sound familiar?
Because your grandfather was there when it happened.
Oh, right! That was one of his first journal entries. Something about carnies?
Yeah. Basically, this family reported that their house was besieged by aliens, which is the part of the story everyone knows. According to your grandfather, though, some workers from a traveling carnival had actually found a baby goblin in the woods.
Sorry, but can we call them something else? Goblin feels so Dungeons and Dragons.
Literally, everyone calls them the Hopkinsville Goblins. There is no way I'm calling them anything else. Anyway, the house was attacked because the goblins were trying to get their child back. And thanks to your grandfather, they did.
Okay, so for one thing, we know these goblins definitely exist. What else do we know?
Well, despite most versions of the story, they're not actually aliens.
Yeah, duh. I know you're very sad about that.
I am.
What else?
Not much. That original sighting was in 1955, and up until now, that was the only time anyone ever reported seeing them. They must really keep to themselves, even for cryptids.
Right. So then what's the deal with the recent sightings?
Okay, so there have been a wave of reports and encounters from over the past few days. Some people have even claimed they were attacked. Scratched, hair pulled, nothing too serious though. Now, based on the very vague descriptions people have given, the news has decided that a captive monkey must have gotten loose.
And, again, just to make sure, you don't think it could be an actual monkey?
No way! The sightings are literally in Hopkinsville. Besides, remember that drawing your grandfather did? They do look like some kind of monkey, or like a giant bush baby or something with those huge eyes. And come on, what are the odds of an escaped monkey running loose in a town that once had a major cryptid sighting?
Probably low.
And with that, we made our way down to Kentucky. It was only about a day's drive, definitely not bad. We reached Hopkinsville, a good-sized town on the western end of Kentucky. Since everyone was convinced that a monkey was terrorizing the town, we decided to hide our real interest in the case. Instead, we decided to pose as normal zoologists. We reached out to as many of the witnesses as we could find, and one of them, Irene Calvo, agreed to talk to us.
Why do you want to know what it looked like?
Well, you see, we're trying to figure out what species of ape you saw exactly. It'll help us to capture it safely.
Oh, okay, sure. It was,
Is something wrong?
Yeah, Sorry. I'm just having some trouble remembering. I know it looked me dead in the face, but I can't quite picture what it looked like.
Don't worry, that's perfectly normal in stressful situations like this. Are there any details you can remember?
Yeah, it was pretty big. Came up about this high, like the size of a chimp or something. I hope that helps.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for your time.
No problem. Good luck catching it.
Overall, the few details we were able to find from eyewitness accounts did seem to match the descriptions of the goblin from Norman's journal. some kind of gray-haired primate coming up to about waist height. Combined with the fact that Irene seemed to be suffering from the classic symptoms of the fog, we were more confident that we really were on the hunt for one of these goblins. Well, Mia was. I had been convinced from the very beginning. One thing still didn't add up, though.
If this thing is one of those goblins, why has it been so violent?
Huh. Yeah, you're right. I mean, I would imagine if they were always this aggressive, there'd be a lot more stories of people running into them.
And it also wouldn't explain this big, sudden wave of sightings. Now, assuming my grandfather was right, they were only violent back then because they wanted to rescue their young.
Yeah, that was one specific attack. This thing has been seen all over the place.
Right. And judging from the journal, they're pretty intelligent. So why is this one different?
Maybe it's sick, or rabid or something.
It's certainly possible. I guess there's only one way to find out.
Which is?
We find the damn thing.
Right. And what then?
Then we'll decide what to do with it once we know why it's been attacking people.
Since the goblin that had been seen around town was most likely out of its usual habitat, we decided to start canvassing the neighborhoods closest to the sightings. These were mostly a lot of secluded houses around the edge of town, and hopefully we would be able to find it before it hurt anyone else. Mia's powers didn't seem to be helping at the moment, so we decided to look the old-fashioned way, going door to door.
Hi, do you have a minute?
You see the sign? No soliciting.
Oh, we're not solicitors.
We're with the zoo, and we're trying to track down the ape that's been attacking people.
We're just trying to find out if there is anyone else that has seen anything.
Sorry, I ain't seen nothing.
Are you sure? I know sometimes people can be nervous about reporting encounters with escaped animals.
I certainly would have remembered seeing a crazy, one-eyed monkey. Goodbye.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Most of the day continued like this. Finally, though, we caught a break.
Are you the animal control people?
Yes.
Finally. I called this morning. What took you this long?
Sorry, we've been busy. What did you see?
What did I see? Why do you think I called? I saw that damn monkey.
Of course, sir. You called this morning?
Yeah. After I saw it going through my trash?
Your trash?
Yeah. I threw a rock to scare it off. Then it ran down that way.
We're on it, sir.
Damn right you are. My taxes pay your salary, you know.
Jesus.
I guess we should head that way?
Yeah, let's.
So, of course, we headed in the direction that the man had indicated.
What do you know? Tracks. That old asshole may have actually been helpful.
Do you smell that?
Oh, yeah. You think that's our creature?
Your grandfather didn't say anything about them smelling bad, but it's possible. I mean, I know people say the skunk ape stinks. Obviously, that's why it's called... What?
There it is.
It turned out that the stench we had been smelling was the smell of death. The tracks Mia had been following led us from the side of the road into the surrounding woods, where we found a creature that did resemble the goblin from Norman's journals. Only this one was dead. It was covered in cuts and bruises and scars. It was a mess. Oh my god, why would someone do this? Maybe it had to be put down, but not like this. Even if someone were defending themselves, why hurt it so much?
Those Men in Black Ordo guys? We know they've killed cryptids before.
No, they seem more professional than that.
Wait a minute. No.
No?
Notice the lack of blood? All these cuts didn't kill it. They're old. And look how thin it is. Definitely malnourished. Wait a minute.
What?
Look at its eyes.
The creature had died, presumably from some mix of exhaustion, malnourishment, and overall poor health. and it had died with its eyes open. One was a dull golden yellow. The other was milky and gray, scarred over as a result of some long ago injury. Mia stood up, practically seething.
That asshole had something to do with this.
Wait, what? Which asshole?
The guy from this morning? Don't you remember? He specifically said a crazy, one-eyed monkey.
None of the reports said anything about its eyes.
So how in the hell did he know about it?
The case had just gotten a lot more complicated. Before doing anything else, I sat with the body of the creature while Mia went back to the car and grabbed our shovel. I dug a quick grave and we buried its body. It wasn't much, but it was the least we could do. It had gotten dark out by that time, so we returned to our room to figure out the next course of action. So you think this guy caught a goblin and just tortured it? Why would he do that?
I don't know. Why does anyone abuse an animal? We need to find out more about him.
Okay, I'll see what I can do. You'll never believe this.
What?
Okay, so I looked up the address, and the owner is listed as a Harvey K. Thaler.
Okay.
Thaler?
What am I missing?
Look, before we got into town, I reread your grandfather's journals on the case.
Yeah, of course. Makes sense. So,
one of the people he dealt with was a guy named Billy Ray Thaler. Billy Ray was one of the two guys that found the baby goblin in the first place. He's also the one that decided to take it. Your grandfather definitely did not like him.
And what? You think they're related? Weren't they all traveling carnies? Why would he have stayed in Hopkinsville?
Maybe he liked the area? I don't know. But when the circus left town, he definitely stayed. I even found his obituary. And sure enough, it says he had a son, Harvey. As in Harvey K. Thaler, whom we met this morning.
Son of a bitch.
After he returned the baby goblin, your grandfather told them to get out of town, and Billy Ray didn't listen.
Maybe he went back? Kidnapped another one? Why?
Sims had all those cryptids. Maybe he just wanted a unique pet. But yeah, I think that's pretty darn likely what happened.
Okay, so he steals another one of these goblins, maybe the same one, and keeps it like a pet. Obviously, Harvey would have found out about this at some point. Goblins must have pretty long lifespans. This one outlives Billy Ray, and then his son treats it like shit. Or maybe they both did. But then it finally escapes?
And that's when people start seeing it around town?
Yeah. And if it was abused its whole life, that would explain all the aggression.
Poor thing. I wouldn't know any better.
Exactly.
Well, this sucks. What a crappy way to end a case.
Why would you think that?
Because there was a mysterious creature on the loose. We found it, and it's dead. Case closed.
No. We're going back there. This f***er's gonna pay for what he did. Either we'll find something we can call the cops about, or, I don't know, frame him or something.
Because that all worked so well against Faulkner.
Lucas, you saw how beat up it was. Faulkner may have monsters, but at least he didn't torture them. We cannot let this son of a bitch walk away scot-free.
Okay. This'll probably go terribly again, but okay. So, that night, we decided to sneak back out onto the property. Just do some reconnaissance to start off. We returned to the area, parking a distance away and keeping to the shadows as we approached. Reaching the house, we were immediately distracted by the lights and noise coming from the backyard. Behind Harvey Thaler's house was a large field bordered by trees, and at the far end of this field was a large 2-story barn. This was the source of all the lights and noise. Sounds like someone's having a party.
Stick to the trees. There could be people going back and forth between the barn and the house. Or just coming out for a smoke.
Right. As we approached the barn, we could hear yelling and cheering coming from inside. After carefully walking around the perimeter of the barn and not seeing anyone, we crept up closer and finally peered in. It was... Sorry. It was f***ing horrible. In the middle of the barn was a fenced-in circle of packed dirt surrounded by spectators, and inside the circle were 2 goblins. They looked just as bad as the dead one we had found, and they were being forced to fight each other. The sounds of hooting and dogs barking suggested that there were more animals in the barn we couldn't see. Now, for obvious reasons, I am not going to share the audio of that. Anyway, after seeing enough to realize what was going on, we retreated back into the woods almost immediately. Oh my god. Jesus.
We should lock the doors and burn that barn to the ground.
You know we can't do that. At least for the animals.
No. We're gonna rescue them. We did it once before. We can do it again.
Quiet. I think they're coming out.
Hey, don't get mad at me. You're the one making stupid bets.
Whatever. You just got lucky. Same time next week.
You know it.
We went back to our room. It was a good thing we had already eaten dinner because neither of us had an appetite after that. I cried for a while, hugging Fritz as tightly as she would let me, and Mia just sat in silence. I'd never seen her like this before, even when we dealt with Faulkner or Sims. She had pure death in her eyes. In the morning, when we were both finally composed enough to talk, it was decided that we would return at sundown. From the sounds of it, there wouldn't be another fight in the barn for a week, so hopefully the barn would be free of humans. After breakfast, Mia went out and rented a horse trailer. We didn't know how many goblins were in the barn, but if we were successful, we would need a way to get them out of there. After that, the rest of the day was spent mostly just waiting. We were both tense. It wasn't more dangerous than anything we had faced before, but we just wanted to go and get it over with. Finally, though, the sun set and we headed to the Thaler residence once more. Reaching the woods around the barn, we stayed hidden and just watched until about midnight to make sure the coast really was clear. At that point, the lights in the main house finally went out. Feeling confident that we wouldn't be disturbed, we went up to the barn. The doors were padlocked shut, but Mia's bolt cutters made short work of that. Going in, we could see a row of cages against the far wall of the barn. We didn't turn our lights on because we didn't want to rile up any of the animals. And as best as we could tell in the dark, there were about half a dozen goblins of varying ages and just as many dogs.
Alright, time to start tranking. Shit.
Good boy. Please don't bark.
Hold this. Quiet. Good boy. Good boy. You'll be out of here soon. I promise.
Man, that is Andy.
Listen, these animals are all incredibly stressed out. If one starts making noise, they all will. Obviously, we can't let that happen. Trank the goblins. I'm gonna focus on keeping everyone calm.
All of them? Can you even do that?
I'm gonna try.
Mia continued to focus, and I began sedating the goblins. Whether it was because of her powers or just through sheer dumb luck, none of the dogs began barking. Soon enough, all the goblins were out cold, and we could safely move them. There were too many to carry, but we had also brought a wheelbarrow with us for that very reason. We loaded them on and then hightailed it out of there. With the goblins safely liberated, there were 2 things left for us to do. First was calling the police with an anonymous tip about an illegal dogfighting ring. And Even though it was the goblins that had been fighting on our first night outside the barn, I also sent in a copy of that recording. Thankfully, we found out later that all the dogs had been rescued. A few had to be put down, but the rest were now looking for good homes. Harvey Thaler, on the other hand, was arrested on animal cruelty charges. He hasn't gone to trial yet, but he's looking at a few years of jail time at least. I know it's not a perfect ending, but it was the best we could have hoped for. At least without Mia going all Punisher on the guy. It's times like this that I wished one of our contacts who knew about cryptids was a cop, just so we could really get help dealing with people like this. Anyway, with that mess taken care of, the last thing that remained for us to do was find these goblins a new home. Since they had all been abused, likely for most of their lives, and since we didn't even know where their natural habitat was, that meant they would need to stay in captivity. Thankfully, we knew just the person. And even better, Hopkinsville was only half an hour away from the Tennessee border. We reached Donna's house in no time at all. Donna! Boy, is it good to see you.
Hey guys, I take it they're in the trailer?
Yeah.
You can finally put some of those new enclosures to good use.
That's the idea.
So, we already called Robbie and filled her in, too. She'll be here in a few days to check on them all. Get them patched up, give them whatever meds they might need.
Great! So how many of them are there again?
7.
7. Wow. You guys want to help me name them all?
Of the goblins we rescued, one was very old, its fur more white than silver. 2 were young, much smaller than the rest, and the other 4 seemed to be older juveniles or just full-grown adults. We ended up naming the old one Popeye, the 2 young ones are Pinky and Brain, and the rest are Cornelius, Zira, Caesar, and Abu. We stuck around Donna's until Robbie was able to visit, just to make sure they really were all well and settled. And in the meantime, we also got to visit with Sylvester the panther and Lobo, the lycanthrope that had previously been a little bipedal puppy. Oh my god, you're getting so big!
How's his temperament? Aggressive?
I think you guys brought him here while he was still young enough that he'd trust the 3 of us. Now, if a stranger went in there, it'd be hard to say. Although I still wouldn't recommend going in there when he's hungry.
Who's a good boy? You think the goblins will be okay here?
Yeah, I think they're gonna be just fine. Field notes. Hopkinsville goblins. As usual, this species has a terrible and totally inaccurate name. Interestingly, this is the first time we found a cryptid that my grandfather had previously encountered, at least as far as we know from his journals. Then again, he did tell us to find Champ, so he probably found that one too. Anyway, my point is, his descriptions were pretty much accurate. The goblins are bipedal with long, thin limbs. Their fingers end in claws, and their arms are long enough that a quadrupedal stance may also be possible. Despite their overall, lankiness, they have very large heads. Speaking of heads, they have massive yellow eyes, much larger than human eyes, 2 protruding fangs, and tall, pointed ears. They're covered in a grayish silver fur. Definitely some kind of primate. Probably a prosimian. That group is a little more primitive and includes species like lemurs and tarsiers. Although, unlike prosimians, the goblins don't have tails. They also display a high intelligence, but nothing out of the ordinary for primates. Normally, they live out in the wild, of course, but given that the ones we rescued were captives, I can't really say anything about their behaviors, or diet, or habitat. Who knows how captivity changed them? I can't begin to imagine what they've been through. I know Donna will take good care of them. End field notes.
The Cryptid Cases has been a production of Little Giant Monsters.
You can follow us by searching Little Giant Monsters on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram to keep up to date with everything we're working on. We even post a sketch of the latest Cryptid every Monday after a new episode.
You can also visit our website, littlegiantmonsters.com, to see all of our content in one place.
While you're there, want our designs on stickers, t-shirts, coffee mugs, and more? We now have merch. Just look for the merchandise link on our website.
If you really like what we're doing and want to see us do more, please consider supporting us on Patreon. Rewards include behind-the-scenes content, bonus material, and more. Search Little Giant Monsters on Patreon or find a link on our website.
You can also help us by leaving a rating and review on iTunes. Not only does each review warm our cold, cynical hearts, but it helps us move up the charts and bring the show to a wider audience.
Your continued support means so much to us. Thanks for listening and see you again soon.